Buckeyes and Wolverines came together this week in a show of support and brotherhood. Survivors of Ohio State University sexual predator Dr. Richard Strauss are demanding removal of billionaire and donor Les Wexner's name from the OSU Woody Hayes Athletic Center. Wexner was chairman of the OSU Board of Trustees during the final 10 years of the Strauss tenure, and the survivors believe he has information relevant to their claims against Ohio State. Welcome to Sunday Briefing. I'm Colleen Marshall. Attorneys for both OSU and Wexner say he has no information that is relevant to the Strauss case. Still, a group of survivors is demanding action.
Everyone in this community needs to answer the question, Woody or Wexner? You can't have both.
The survivors who've been unable to subpoena Wexner are now turning to the court of public opinion, tying Wexner to their case and to sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, who was his friend and longtime financial advisor.
Epstein was arrested and charged with molesting a 14-year-old girl. Yet, in June of 2007, after those charges were known, Epstein endorsed and delivered a $2.5 million check that this university accepted and deposited.
A university spokesman says that money came from the Wexner Children's Trust, but it did pass through a foundation run by Jeffrey Epstein. It was added to another $2.5 million from the Wexner Foundation for naming rights of the football facility inside the Woody. Al Washington played football at OSU during Woody Hayes' final year.
But I guarantee you, if something like this happened during his era when he was alive, there's no way it would happen. He'd take his name off because he stood for what was right.
The Buckeyes were joined by Wolverines, Michigan athletes who say they suffered through sexual assaults on their campus, also at the hands of a teen doctor.
We're now fathers, uncles, husbands, and we're trying to not change what happened to us, but we're trying to protect the future. So it gets easier and easier as we speak out because we know that no one spoke out for us.
I played under Schembeckler, who was obviously, came from Woody. So he had the same morals and ethics, in terms of how he looked at things.
The Woody was the backdrop. The Woody or Wexner shirts and hats will carry forward their message that the connections are troubling.
And completely contradictory to the values of the most prominent figure in the history of this university, Wayne Woodrow Woody Hayes.
OSU spokesman Ben Johnson told me Ohio State has a process in place to challenge the name of any building on campus, and it can be found on the university website. Well, within 12 hours of our report, one of the survivors did file a formal request to strip Wexner's name from campus buildings. We are less than 2 weeks away from 2026, a midterm election year, and here in Ohio, it promises to be a competitive, contentious political season. And no race will be more closely watched than the U.S. Senate contest between incumbent John Husted and former Ohio Senator Sherrod Brown. John Husted and Sherrod Brown agree on the nature of the problems facing everyday Americans, but not on what to do about it or who's to blame on health care.
Well, I can tell you right now, the problem that exists with Obamacare is a problem that actually my opponent created. Everything that's going wrong in the system, he voted for it. The expiring tax credits, he voted to have them expire this year. I proposed legislation this week that I fought for on the Senate floor. The Democrats blocked it, but it would renew the premium tax credit subsidies, but it would provide accountability.
Congress could fix this in one day. John Husted's had literally 9 chances, and he's feeling, I understand the reason. The reason is he would rather vote for tax cuts for billionaires and then cut Medicaid and then cut insurance and cut veterans benefits and all the things that happen when politicians sell out to their corporate friends.
As millions of Americans brace for an end to the Affordable Care Act subsidies, neither side has presented a compromise solution that will stabilize the health care system. On immigration, Republicans point to the sharp decrease in southern border crossings and the sharp increase in deportations as proof the Trump immigration policy is working. Democrats point to ICE raids targeting nonviolent immigrant workers as proof it is too extreme.
ICE and local police authorities can work together to make sure the people that get deported are those who have committed violent crimes, not people who have families, not people who are contributing in the workplace at a restaurant, or contributing in the workplace in farms in northern Ohio, or contributing in the workplace and construction sites in Delaware County or Licking County. That's the way we should do this, not play political games and score political points and get on the 6 o'clock news. No offense to those who run the 6 o'clock news.
But the argument from the other side is those people might be here illegally.
People around the country and around Ohio that I talk to want to make sure that we continue our commerce in this state, that businesses can operate efficiently and profitably, but make sure that those who commit violent crimes are deported. That's my point. Focus on those who've committed violent crimes, not on others who simply are doing their jobs every day.
On the missile strikes of suspected Venezuelan drug boats, Democrats argue the Trump administration is engaging in acts of war without congressional authorization.
We've had 400,000 overdose deaths in this country in the last 10 years, and a lot of it comes from places like those narco-terrorists in the Caribbean, and now we're stopping them. If these were guns and bombs, people would be outraged that we didn't stop them. Well, narco-terrorists are now being stopped. The illicit oil trade that is financing our enemies and terrorism around the world, they're stopping that as well. They had a court order that said they could do that. And I just think that we're sending a message that America is serious about stopping the drug trade.
Husted talked to reporters as he was officially filing to be on the primary Republican ballot. I had a Zoom interview with Brown. Both were asked about the latest Emerson poll that has Husted slightly ahead.
I am not going to get into the business of following every poll because it's within the margin of error of what it was in the first one, so you can't draw firm conclusions. But I just know this, that my predecessors that ran for this, J.D. Vance, Bernie Moreno, when they ran, they were down by 7 points, 6 months before the election. They were way behind. Bernie was way behind Sherrod Brown and ended up beating him by over 200,000 votes. At this point, we're ahead. We're in great shape. But understand, I never take the voters of Ohio for granted. We'll go out and earn every single one of those votes next year and beyond, and we'll come away victorious.
Well, I'm not a pundit. You decide, Colleen, what you do with those stories. In the end, people vote. I mean, this is way before an election now, but people vote for politicians. Are you on my side or not? And when they make that contrast with John Husted and me, a guy that's voted for billionaire tax cuts and special interest tax cuts, a guy who is all in with the electric company raising its rates, all in with Wall Street, all in with the drug companies fleecing customers, versus me, who I've had my whole career devoted to taking on those interest groups. I think the outcome of this election is pretty clear.
Still to come, a new election data share that will have your information sent to other states. Ohio's Secretary of State says it's a matter of security. Critics say it's a solution in search of a problem. How safe and secure are Ohio elections? Of the 600 cases referred by Secretary of State Frank LaRose to the Office of Ohio Attorney General Dave Yost, Only 6 led to voter fraud charges. Each of the defendants allegedly had voter registration issues, but the 6 cases stretched over a 12-year period. Yost says none of the cases would have changed the outcome of any election, and he has criticized LaRose for referring so many weak cases to his office. LaRose is now ready to join a multi-state election security network, and the information he is sharing is all about you.
There's a rare form of election fraud, but not impossible. In fact, it has happened where people try to vote in 2 different states.
The Secretary of State is joining nearly a dozen other states trying to stop multi-state voting.
Maybe they vote here and then they also vote away on a college campus, or maybe they own property in another state and they try to vote in both places. That's a crime. It's a serious crime, actually. It's a felony.
The multi-state database is Alexa. It includes Ohio's neighbors, West Virginia and Pennsylvania. The states will share voter list information in an effort to stop cross-state voting.
If someone moves out of state and registers and votes in that state, then we can begin the process of removing them from the voter rolls here in Ohio.
But critics point out LaRose praised and spent taxpayer money on another election integrity system called ERIC that they claim he pulled out of only after it was criticized by the White House and MAGA conservatives. The problem is so rare that they question the decision to expose Ohio voter information to other states.
I don't get too hung up on what the trolls on social media say, but occasionally you'll get a wise guy that says, well, this is so rare, why even bother, or why do you emphasize this? When a law is not enforced, it's not a law. And it's my job to enforce the law. That's the oath that I took. We believe that there should be consequences when somebody cheats. And so even though voter fraud is exceedingly rare, it's not unheard of. We're going to work to keep it rare in Ohio.
Well, our strategists are up next. We're going to talk about ICE in Ohio and about the president's take on the economy when we come back. Welcome back. We have on our roundtable with us this week a Republican strategist, Will Hinman, and Morgan Harper from the Democrat side of the aisle, a former congressional candidate. Well, this week we saw the president give an Oval Office address. It's been a while since he's done that, and he wanted to talk about the economy, which he seems to believe is chugging along at a very good pace. I'm going to start with you, Will, because even some members of your own party were saying that's a little tone deaf because it's not what Americans are experiencing. Or do you believe that he thinks we are on the right track with the tariffs and his programs?
Well, the president acknowledged that there's work to be done, but when 92% of mainstream media pieces about the first term, or about the second term, have been negative, I can't blame the president for wanting to reclaim the narrative. And the fact is that inflation is level versus, his predecessor, which drove up prices to levels unseen. And I think we are making substantial progress, and his economic policies are generally working.
And he's right. The media coverage has been very negative to the president. Certainly, the late night coverage with the late night programs. But some people say this is the reality that American families are dealing with. What did you take away from that speech?
Yeah, well, and I think we also need to be clear. Media is covering what's happening with people, and polling is showing that the people think that the president's job on the economy is bad. And so it's not just being imagined. In terms of what the president actually said, I mean, I think he is falling into a little bit of trap that we actually saw in the last administration too, where you want to believe that you're doing a great job because you're saying things, but if the people on the ground, including, I know a lot of small business owners I've talked to in Ohio are really feeling the impact from the tariffs. If they don't believe that, if people don't feel like they have enough money to keep up with the affordability crisis, then they are going to start looking for answers, and they may look elsewhere than the Republican Party.
The most recent Emerson poll did give the president bad numbers on the economy. But do you think, as he believes that he has had to take care of some problems that he says he inherited, is that what you think might happen in the new year, taking care of the problems?
Yeah, and also data came out this week that showed that inflation's the lowest it's been since March of 2021. So when Biden took office, inflation went up, and that is the pressure that Americans are feeling, and that's who's to blame for this. And going into the new year, I think we have a lot of momentum to continue the work that we've done in maintaining a low inflation rate.
But job market is a little shakier now than it has been. But that too could stabilize in the new year. I mean, what do you think the markers are going to be that people are going to look at?
Yeah, I think 2026 is going to be very interesting for how the president and then folks in Congress navigate the affordability crisis. And one of the tricky things with measuring this is something like healthcare. And the president mentioned this in his speech. One of the things that is causing people to feel a lot of economic anxiety is healthcare. And this post-ACA debate that is going to happen, who has a plan for actually getting to a healthcare system that's lowering costs? I think that's going to be something to watch, and what ideas are going to be winning the day.
Before we go to break, I want to quickly ask each of you to weigh in. We earlier heard from Secretary of State Frank LaRose, who has a new plan. He's joining this multi-state system where they're going to share each other's voter rolls. Is this a good idea?
No, this is a silly idea, and Frank LaRose just seems to always want to focus on things that jeopardize the integrity of Ohio in our elections, but not actually solving problems that Ohioans want him to look at.
Do you think it's a good idea getting into this multi-state system? The voter fraud has been very low, at least in Ohio.
What I think Democrats have failed to articulate is why it is an issue, and why enhancing our election integrity is a bad thing. I'm kind of wondering why we haven't made sure that people that are voting in other states aren't also voting in Ohio. I mean, that's a breach of law, and it's a breach of our democracy, and so that is a threat, and I'm glad that somebody is looking into it.
Right, when we come back, we're going to talk about something else that happened late in the week in this part of Ohio, and that's ICE agents on the ground and very active. We'll be right back. We have to make the point that the borders are more secure than they have been in a number of years, and part of it is because of what federal Border Patrol agents and ICE is doing. ICE was in Columbus late in the week. They didn't notify the mayor. They didn't notify the U.S. Marshal's office that they were coming here. Are they doing what they should do in the way that they should be doing it, Will?
Of course. Why would they notify the mayor's office, who is clearly opposed to what they're doing? He said as much in his conference with Police Chief Elaine Bryant this week. So I do believe that they are doing what Donald Trump was elected to do. One of the top motivators for voters in this election cycle was the border, and was deporting illegal aliens from our country.
And your feelings on that? Because I know at the beginning it was this promise, we're going after the criminal elements. They're also going after roofers.
Yeah, I mean, I think we know that there has not been a lot of discipline in the execution of this strategy of immigration coming out of the White House. And it's pretty sad. I mean, clearly the president, and we heard this in the speech again, he's trying to scapegoat immigrants and make people think that immigrants are the problems, the economic problems that they're experiencing, that somehow immigrants are driving up housing costs. And it is ridiculous. And so, again, it's really incumbent upon all of us in Central Ohio to do what we can to protect each other throughout the state, really, and our neighbors that are going to be going through these needless attacks, and make sure that the law is being followed.
I saw you make a motion. You have about 10 seconds to respond to that.
Well, when you import 20 million people into our country, twice the size of the state of Ohio just about, you're going to have issues with housing costs. So to claim that they're not in any way dragging up prices in the economy, I think is false. All
right. Well, we thank both of you for being with us. Thank you for being with us as well. And next week on Sunday Briefing, we're going to have an end-of-the-year conversation with Governor DeWine. We hope you can join us then on Sunday Briefing.